transcriptions. Well, happy Friday, everybody. I am so excited to be here with my special guest today to talk trumpet, none other than Jeff Bunnell and Wayne Bergeron. Wayne is enjoying a career as one of the most sought after musicians in the world. Studio sessions, film dates, international touring, jazz concerts, guest appearances, and clinics keep him busy, not only in his hometown of Los Angeles, but worldwide. Jeff Bunnell is a busy studio trumpet player as well here in Los Angeles and a member of many top bands. Jeff arranges orchestras and conducts music for television and film. Jeff is also a prolific composer and arranger with many of his works in print, including 3 popular books of trumpet solo transcriptions. Jeff and Wayne are here to talk to you today to answer your trumpet questions, but also to talk about their awesome new CD that they produced, Homage, with the Los Angeles Trumpet Ensemble, featuring many of LA's and Hollywood's top trumpet players. So, without further ado, let's bring on my guests today, Jeff Bunnell and Wayne Bergeron. Jeff, Wayne, great to see you. Let's talk
Good to
trumpet.
see you.
How you guys doing?
How you doing? Yeah, I've got a little beef. Got a beef to pick with you, though. I noticed that it said Jeff Bunnell and Wayne Bergeron, and I thought, well, maybe he's going alphabetically, and by
Well,
last
yeah, I
name.
figured,
He must have been going by first name, maybe. So
well,
it's
Jeff,
okay.
I just went by whoever showed up first this morning, so sorry about that.
Yeah, and as I didn't show up first this morning.
But we are here. It's so awesome. And we already have folks joining in the comments. We got Ryan, Kevin, Joe Lave, my good buddy Joe Leva, checking in. And we got the first question. So Ryan is asking, and whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead. How did you guys navigate the economic challenges of getting the project like your LA Trumpet Ensemble across the finish line?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think really the group wanted this project to go forward, and so we all just kind of made it happen. So that's it. I mean, it's these things are expensive. Wayne really knows how expensive they are because he's done big band records.
Yeah, my last big band record cost me 65 to 70 grand. And that was with favors.
So Well, and I mean, let's kind of maybe add some context to this because I know some folks. I should mention you guys were just recently on the other side of the bell podcast, but folks haven't listened to that because we did talk about kind of the impetus of this album.
Right.
How did it all start, and then like how was it funded? I mean, did you guys have a giant record deal? Did you sell one of your 9 yachts that you talked about in the podcast, or was it just a labor of love?
Well, Jeff, want me to chime in?
Yeah, sure.
So it was basically we donated our time. It's as I mentioned in the other thing. I mentioned to Jeff we should record some of these things, and so we jumped on it, and everybody kind of decided we would do this thing. It started off we were just going to do a few things. Jeff decided to write some more things. So I mean, it's been a long process with COVID and schedules and all that stuff putting this together. But basically, everybody donated their time to the project, and we were going to share in the proceeds if whatever that might be in the future. The thing is getting a lot of attention now, so we're having to go through a couple of little legalities with the musicians union and stuff. But other than that, that's kind of how this came to be. I mean, if you think of all the recording sessions we did, Jeff, at my house here, and if we were paying everybody on contract, I mean, so we have to really thank everybody for doing this because it's it would have been very, very expensive. I mean, you could do something like this if we were a rehearsed group and we were rehearsing and decided to go into the studio, go to a scoring stage and do 5 tunes a day or something and go in and do that'd be a different story, because you just have a couple of sessions. But even that would still be expensive, So anyway, it is what it is, and we're it came out really, really nice, and turns out we didn't need a big recording studio.
Well, that's I mean, I was going to say, and the recording behind it. I mean, you guys did it basically in your home studios, right? You get to get some players together and
we did it mostly at Wayne's house.
It was all done at Wayne's house.
We did a few sessions at Dan Savant's studio, but it was always with at least 4 trumpets at once.
Wow.
We're going to try 8, but it'd be impossible. Kind of 4 in the living room here and 4 in my room, and then communicating. And at one point, I was engineering with the iPad, and trying to play. And I'm going, okay, let's start. And the iPad's a little bit limited on what I can do with the stuff. So I'm okay. Here's bar 42. Let's get in here, and then I have to turn around and try to be quiet and play without sucking. And it was just, this hair is sucking today, but that's another podcast for another day. But I got good hair, but just not very nice today. So.
That's right. I mean, it's not like it's going out on the internet or anything. It's
okay. All right, whatever. This is me in the morning.
That's why the podcast has been audio only for 10 years.
Yeah, nobody
no one wants to know what we actually look like.
Nobody wants to see this. Yeah.
Awesome. We got some good friends, Ryan Reske and Jody Malone, checking in. So I want to mention, send us some love, show us, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Most importantly, ask questions. We got Jeff and Wayne here for the next half an hour or so to ask pretty much anything you want to know about Trumpet or their new album, Homage, with the LA Trumpet Ensemble. One thing I did want to bring up, I wanted to mention, because, I mean, you guys are kind of the driving force behind the album, but the players you have on here, John Lewis, Dan Fernero, Marisa Benedict, Dan Rosenboom, Rob Shear, Larry Hall, and Dan Savant, you can't get a better section here in LA. I mean, it was obviously not everybody. There's other fine players in LA, but I mean, was it difficult to get them, or were they all on board and say, yes, let's do it?
I'll jump in. So this actually started, Wayne was the one that said, we should do a trumpet ensemble CD. And so we talked about who should be in it, and we came up with these names. And everyone was on board. Nobody said no. And we read through the charts and we said, yeah, we should move forward and do this. And we did.
Mm-hmm. Just like that. That was amazing.
There was talk of bringing, you remember, Jeff, we were talking about maybe bringing some other people in at some point, just to have even more people on here. But that ended up being, like for one of the tunes, remember, like for Roof Garden, I had mentioned maybe we should bring Chuck Finley in to solo on this just as a cameo, and I ended up doing the temp on it. I did a a placeholder on it, and it we ended up just keeping it. And
Well,
Well,
Wayne's placeholder is anyone else's best day. So he downplays that, but he played a great solo, and
mhm.
after it was done, we're like, it's fine. Why put anything else there? It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, now you guys can start working on volume 2 and then bring Chuck in on something. So.
there you go.
Except have him play slide trumpet on that.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot of. I mean, there's so many great players here. I mean, there's a lot of other. We could have done a couple of trumpet ensembles with different groups, and would have been
Yeah,
all equally as as you know, it's a pretty deep pool here.
yeah.
Um, of talent on every instrument. Actually,
Yeah, and that's it shows the depth of LA. That I mean, you can have 8 players on this, and there's probably still another couple of albums worth of players that could have been on that are just as versatile and that sort of thing. And it
well,
really
not quite,
speaks to.
not just not quite as good, but pretty close.
And so, Wayne, since you brought up Roof Garden, and Jeff, I want to talk to you a little bit about because you wrote or arranged everything on the album except for the last track. So I want to bring up the last track first, and then we'll get to you, Roof Garden, which you got Jerry Hay to graciously do an arrangement. Can you talk about how that came about?
Go ahead,
well,
Jeff, because
okay, so I after Wayne and I talked about doing this project, and I started writing charts, and I came up kind of with an idea in my mind about trying to cover a lot of different bases that we do here in Los Angeles, and we had a read through of all these charts, and Larry Hall just said, "Wow, you've got a lot of different styles here," and I said, the one style we don't have is like a Jerry Hay kind of thing. And I said, and he's actually someone I haven't been able to figure out his writing, and I couldn't do a chart like that. And Larry goes, well, maybe Jerry would want to do a chart. And so he asked him, and he said, yeah, I'd be happy to. And he wrote this incredible chart. I mean, he's a great writer, so he wrote a really great, incredible chart. And
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up being the closer for a lot of reasons. I can't think of what chart would follow that.
yeah,
It's a pretty epic chart. So
It really is the icing on the cake. I mean, and it's a real treat because the whole album. For those of you who haven't listened to it, we have some like Steve Frost just check in, said he just got his CD earlier this week and loves it. But the whole album, except for that last track, is only trumpet ensemble, no rhythm section, no other instruments, and then have Jerry's chart with rhythm section is just like that extra of it. So cool. And as we talked about on the podcast, it was pretty a cool moment, Wayne, where you talk about you have your solo line. Have you decided to put that out yet? That last lick? Are you going to put the solo
although
version of that out?
yeah, well, that was an overdub. I did the very last thing, the high thing.
Uh,
But yeah, but like soloed up. If you hear it soloed up, like I was saying, it sounds like a siren because it's so high. It sounds like. I get to the last note. I start on the right note, and I get the shape of the line. But is it note perfect? No, and I don't know anybody that can really play it note perfect. It's an effect,
yeah,
and and
but it works.
yeah, it works for
It
Maynard. I
works.
think I mentioned this on the other thing. Maynard used to do stuff like that when I watch him play. We used to play the tune bebop,
Mhm.
faster than that even, And Maynard would play that up an octave, and he would use one valve. He'd go, and he'd go, then he'd land on that A flat, and it would sound exactly like he was playing every note. So little trickery, little witchcraft in there.
Well, I mean, the trombone players, you get the great jazz trombone players. When they're soloing fast, they're only using first and second position most of the time. So we can do that too as trumpet players, I guess,
Yeah. Except
right?
we're shucking and driving, and they're not.
So speaking of Maynard, you guys opened the CD with "Give It One." What how did that come around? What was the choice to do that song? And can you talk about the recording of that and Wayne's fabulous solo on that?
Yeah.
Jeff, go ahead because you were in charge of the order of the thing. So
So when we put this group together and I wrote these charts, and of course, I mean, Wayne is a world-class trumpet player, and so I knew that I wanted to feature him on this CD, and somehow I figured out that we could do Give It One without just take the big band chart and reorchestrate it for 8 trumpets, and that it would work. And so we recorded that, and Wayne played this great solo, and he sounds great on it. Everyone sounds great on it, and it's high energy. And then after everything was done, then the question of any CD is, what's the first track? Because the first track kind of sets the tone for what you're about to hear. And I thought, this is a classical instrumentation, a trumpet ensemble. And but I thought, this isn't your father's trumpet ensemble. And so I thought we should open with Give It One, just to shoot a shot across the bow, like this is going to be a different kind of trumpet ensemble than you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strong chart. And I mean, so it was just that, to me, it made sense to put that first. And
Yeah.
I think it's a good choice.
It's it's an awesome opening. And then what I love about it is, you hit it hard with Give It One and Wayne solo, which, Wayne, I have a question for you about that coming in. But then you switch right to the main theme of Silverado, which is one of those great, I'd say, here in Hollywood, everyone knows Silverado and that the great horns and the great Bruce Brown soundtrack. But overall, it's not on a Star Wars or Jurassic Park or, that's Star Trek kind of, echelon of soundtracks. And so to go from, in your face trumpets to then this just gorgeous soaring melody is really, really amazing. So Wayne, I did want to ask you, we had a question come in about your solo on that. Were you gonna? It's because it sounds Maynard-esque, but it also sounds like Wayne as well. Was that on purpose? Did you kind of calculate that, or were you going to do Maynard solo? What did that look like?
no, I wasn't thinking about that so much, but I mean, let's face it, we've all got a little Maynard in us, when it comes to playing like that. So that influence will be there, especially if you're playing something that he played. Matter of fact, the beginning of the solo, with the exception of the first note, I kind of go into a couple of his licks because it's just kind of what I hear there. It was so perfect, and then I did my own thing after that. I kind of like a little tip of the hat to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then played my own thing, so I remember that's the first thing I ever heard Maynard Ferguson play was that tune. It was the Orange Coast Charlotte College Jazz Festival. Well, they played Bluebird Birdland, then Maynard came out and they started with Give It One, and as a kid, like all of us, I was just floored, and I remember that moment like it was yesterday. And so anyway, to get to play, get to record that thing was pretty cool and pretty fun. And hopefully Maynard is looking up at me with approval.
And I should mention, for the folks that get the digital version on Bandcamp of the CD, you have Jeff, you transcribed that solo, right? And it's included in the digital booklet, so folks can get that. And I do have the link down below in the comments section for where you can download the CD, purchase the CD, and you also, the digital album, and then also the CD. We had one question come in from Randy wondering if you were going to have any more signed copies because they missed out on that. Any plans on getting more signed to release?
I don't know. So Marisa lives in Minnesota, and so and we're all working, and trying to get us all in the same room is difficult. So
yeah, that would be tough.
A big maybe.
Yeah, it could happen, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, folks will just have to buy the CD and then track you down when you guys are at concerts and do it the old-fashioned way.
There you go.
Got a question coming in from Kevin, wondering, did you guys use any flugels in the recording?
A little bit. Originally, no. Jeff didn't have anything written for flugel. And when we were doing a couple of these things, we recorded them one way, and some of the lines that were in there were French horn parts actually. And so Jeff and I put our heads together and came in and actually added some flugel for that color on a couple of things. On your feature, Jeff, right on the river, we ba-da, 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 that thing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we do that? Didn't we put some flugels in there on that, I think?
I think it is on the second half. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we did somewhere else. So there's a little bit of flugel in there.
Yeah.
There's some, there's some piccolo from a couple from John and Dan Rosenboom on some things. There's some C trumpet from those guys. Not well. Actually, I did play C on one of the lower parts on something, but mostly for me, B flat and Jeff and I think Dan Rosenboom on Procession of the Nobles, the little lick, the solo. I think he played that on a D trumpet.
Wow, nice. So you
I'm not
guys,
positive, but I think so.
well, we'll say he did.
Okay.
It'll be out
I
there.
don't remember those little funny looking trumpets. I never remember what they are when I see them. Those cheater trumpets or whatever they're called.
On the Olympic fanfare, after the fanfare, and then there's like a little, I don't know, 8 bars, and then the melody comes in, and it's 2 flugels in unison, and it's Wayne and I.
Oh, right,
Wow.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, shoot the arranger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just another day in the office for us, but it was good. I think I originally was just writing for B flat trumpet, and I think that was wrong. And I started realizing there's so much color, using mutes, using piccolo, using flugel, all these other instruments, and it just made more sense. And Wayne was like, "Yeah, what about flugel on this?" And he was right. And so there's not a lot of flugel, but there's more color to the later charts. Like Superman, I used a bunch of mutes in the beginning because it's a big orchestra thing that I reorchestrated for trumpets,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes sense to have mixed mutes in there, and yeah.
So, yeah, Jeff, we had a question come in about your writing process. I mean, was this were you thinking about the specific players in mind for these charts, or was it a thing where you had the charts in mind and you got them down and you just knew the players could play whatever you put in front of them, that sort of thing? What did that look like?
Well, for sure, with this group, you could write anything you want, not have to worry, and everyone can play great. So I don't think I ever was concerned about, is this too hard, because it wasn't. Some of the arrangements I wrote, just I wrote the charts, and wasn't concerned about who would be playing them. And some of them I definitely thought about who would be playing them and wrote, or for that person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for sure, Wayne, I knew when I was doing Give It One, I thought, well, Wayne will be playing Maynard's part. I mean, I just knew that, and he'd be the perfect call. So
Awesome.
And then
We got a lot.
John Lewis on JFK, is like
yeah,
the perfect choice for that. After
Yeah.
Jeff and I mean, but he was the next best one for that.
Yeah, and that's what
But
I
he
love
sounded
about
like
the CD.
he's the one to play that, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, and
he
that's
sounded really great.
what we talked about on the podcast. Is I mean, all of the trumpet players had their time in the kind of in the spotlight, and which is amazing. It kind of reminds me of Tootie's Trumpets, where everyone, there's some great section moments in Tootie's Trumpets like Stardust, but then everyone got a chance to solo and really, really shine. And you guys did a similar thing, which is so awesome because, there's cues I'm sure you guys are all kind of known for, and either in the big fat band or in movie scores and things like that. But they're little moments, and to get a whole tune of Jeff or Wayne, you guys getting to shine is really awesome. I'm going to take a little pause here. Recognize some folks. Jim Manley, good friend of ours, is checking in. Says hi to you both,
Hey,
and says,
yo, Jim.
yeah, loves awesome playing in the charts. He loves them, so that's great. Um, And should mention we have over 100 people watching between YouTube and Facebook, and we only have 32 likes, which means only 30% of you have hit that like button. So do yourself a favor. We all got up early this morning to be on talking about Trumpet and answering your questions. So you do your job and hit that like button so that folks will see this around the world. I want to get back to the question. Steve Frost, another good buddy of ours, wants to know if you guys could elaborate on the recording process, specifically like what mics were used, things like that. So let's get geeky about that kind of stuff. Who wants to take it? Wayne?
Wayne should do this. Besides producing and arranging, Wayne was the engineer. There's like no limit to this guy's talent. So he knows this information.
All right, Wayne, go for it. Mics, recording process.
Well, we used, it's pretty simple actually. We used Royer microphones. We just used those, except with the exception, the only other microphone on this is on JFK on John Lewis, because this was early on in the process and I was experimenting with the solos and I had two mics blended. I had an AEA R92 and a Royer 122, and I kind of blended them together a little bit. And because I was trying to create, just trying to get a little bit more depth, because we're in a smaller room and that should be in a scoring stage. So I ended up, doing that. But then it wasn't that much different. And, with the great plugins and stuff now, basically what I did to get a decent sound on everything here was I have this Ocean Way studio plugin, and I put everybody in Studio A, and within that plugin you can pick the microphone. You have several microphones you can pick from, but I was just looking for an ambient sound, so I put about 10 feet away. We're basically have a room mic on us besides our individual Royers here, and it just makes it go from this to this. It's not echoey. It just gives it some depth, because this room is a dry room. My living room is a little wetter. We did some stuff out there too. So it gives it a little bit of depth. And then I use the EMT 140 plate reverb. And I found one other settings in there. I forget what it's called. I think it's called acoustic ambience. And I modified it a little bit and, did some stuff with that, put a 20 millisecond delay on it so you hear it a little later. And then the tail end of the sound I put on the Capitol Reverb Chamber from Capitol Records. There's a great plugin for that. So you put a longer 30 millisecond or so delay on that. So that's what you would hear at the end. Now, I don't know how much of that Mike Arval, who actually mixed this, used, but that's how we started with this, to get the initial sounds and get kind of a cohesive sound like we were in a larger room. So basically, that's how we recorded this. It was difficult to play and record at the same time. I will tell you that, because when we were in here, I would do this, and I go, "Here's 2 bars. You guys ready?" And I'd hit the record button and turn around and I have to play. and be quiet, and all that. So it was a pain in the ass, basically. But
try not to knock over a mute or a trumpet or something
exactly
like
all of that, And then if we screwed up, or if I hit something, we could just do it again.
Yeah.
There's probably many good takes burned because of me.
I love it. Great information. Matthew over on Instagram, this is non-CD related, wanted to know each of your biggest musical influences. So maybe, Jeff, we can start with you on that. Who are your biggest influences?
Wow. Well, so from a listening point of view, I mean, the first trumpet player the first guy I listened to was probably Herb Alpert, and then I heard Clifford Brown, and I was very motivated to try to become a jazz trumpet player. I loved what he did, and it just, the more that I started transcribing solos and just getting into it, and I listened to Maurice Andre too in high school, and then once you start expanding your, there's so many great musicians that are out there. And then I was fortunate enough to start taking lessons from Yuan Racy, and that kind of really changed me as a player. And
Hmm.
Yuan had such attention to detail about every aspect of your playing, and was very, very nice, but very much pointing out all these flaws in my playing. But help me to get rid of them. I mean, everyone has them. I don't know if anyone ever gets rid of all your flaws. You spend your whole life working on your playing, and you continue to get better, but there's always something you can do that's still, you need to get better at.
Hmm.
And he was an amazing human being, an amazing musician. And so, yeah. um and I mean, I've got 3 transcription books as far as jazz playing. I mean, I have a
Yep.
Tom Harrell book and a Blue Mitchell and Bobby Shew, and there's a
So,
lot of influences, actually.
mhm.
And lately I've been transcribing Chet Baker solos. So
Yeah.
I
So
think it never ends.
it never ends.
you know
Exactly. How
just
about you,
trying to
Wayne?
get better. Yeah.
Well, here I have
Yeah.
the Blue Mitchell book right here.
Yeah.
You
There you
see how
There
go.
you
worn
go.
out.
Good sale, Jamie Aebersold.
You can see how worn out it is. But
Awesome.
I have to say Herb Albert as well, my first trumpet
Yeah.
influence, because my parents, before I even played trumpet, had Herb Albert records. So I heard that. Then after I started playing trumpet, I would listen to Herb Albert, and I remember playing along in the 7th grade, like with he used to do "Our Day Will Come" is on his second record, I think, and it went. And I used to do that all the time. I just thought it was quirky, and I still do. So Herb was a big influence. Al Hurt was another one.
Hmm.
And then as I, started listening more, I, of course, Maynard Ferguson and Doc Severinsen. Freddie Hubbard was kind of the first real jazz player, though, that I listened to. My trumpet teacher, my junior high band director, was my first trumpet teacher, and he hit me to Freddie Hubbard, and then Connie Candoli. Super Sax was out in the '70s, and I got very much into him, and the list grows as we get older. I also took lessons with Jan Racy. I got to be very good friends with him, and I can tell you that is the nicest person on earth. And I said this at one of his birthday parties. I said, Jan Racy is the nicest person in the world, unless you're taking a trumpet lesson with him, because
Yep.
he was attention to detail. Like I played the first time I got together with him, I played a G in the staff for 1 hour. That's all I did.
Wow.
Me
He just
too.
made me play softer and softer,
Wow.
and to the point where it's just spit coming out almost. I'm going, and I'm sucking. And then he said, "Okay, now play this for me, mezzo piano." And I played it, and it's the first time I got it. I was like, he's taken me to that point of no return. So when you have to do something that's in the wheelhouse, it's be easier. And it was
Wow.
life changing for me as a player, uh, learning how to play like that, because it made the more elegant side of the trumpet a little more accessible for me, because I'm so used to playing hard, as a lead trumpet player with my aperture wide open and playing loud and, doing commercial trumpet stuff. Switching gears and going to the more legit side of the horn, was never what I did, So it was kind of life changing for me. And also, sorry to get long winded about this, but
You're allowed to.
it also, because I used to always think, when I was trying to get a rounder sound, that I could just go to another mouthpiece and it would fix it. Right. So I would go to play him. I'd be on my lead piece, whatever that would be at the time. And it would be spitty sounding or whatever when I tried to play soft. And then I put in a 1.5 C and it would be spitty and dull. It didn't really fix anything. You know what I mean? It just changed the tone quality of the crappy sound. So now I have a crappy sound that's really dull. So, but I'm learning to understand about how the aperture works and learning how to do this. Now when I put a bigger mouthpiece in, I can make use of that bigger resonating chamber to create the kind of sound
Mhm.
I need to make. So that was really some great thing I got from him. So yeah, Jeff and I'm very parallel with that as far as knowing you on
Wow.
and great man. I was actually co-MC at his memorial, even, and my big band played, and we played with a
Wow.
trumpet ensemble with Jeff there. And anyway, quite a moment.
Wow.
Yo, you.
Well, and I mean,
I,
I have
I,
many.
let me say one story about Yuan,
Of
just
course, go for it.
because the great thing about Yuan was that he didn't want to like have you decide I'm done with the trumpet. Like he wanted to encourage you, but he also knew he had to point out your flaws and you had to work on them. And I remember going to a lesson and I really worked on this etude and I spent a lot of time on it and I played it for him. And he looked over at me and then he leaned over and he pointed and he says, "Do you see this note here?" And I said, "Yeah." And I'm thinking, great, one note that he didn't like. This is awesome. And instead he said, "You played this note so beautifully. Let me hear you play the etude again and play all the other notes as well as you played that one note." And without telling me like you sucked, like instead he said it in a better way. And I thought, okay, fine, there's hope for me. I always left my lessons thinking there was hope for me instead of like, man, I'm never gonna get this and I should just call the Duke's school and just leave, you know. And
Yeah. Great
that was a
story.
great thing about him. He was a very positive person. And you know, John Kleiman, who was John. So Yuan played first trumpet at MGM,
MGM.
and John Kleiman played first trumpet at Fox, and he was incredible too. I never met him, but we've all heard him. And apparently, on his desk, he had a whole stack of applications for Burger King. And while you were playing, if he thought you sucked, he would just put that on your stand and say, "This piece of paper here, I think will do you better than the one that you're playing."
Wow.
So it's a different approach to try to get you to like play better.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Now Dave Washburn never. If you don't know who Dave is, he's a phenomenal player, principal with the LA Chamber Orchestra, just a great player.
Mhm.
He said, "I never got that." Well, Dave, you practiced all the time, and you know
Yeah.
he never thought you needed that. But I know people that he got that from him, and they weren't happy about that.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, Kleiman was a tough cookie. I mean, Bob Reeves studied with him, and Bob's got some stories on our podcast about John. And yeah, Dave Washburn was just on the podcast a few episodes ago. So, folks interested in learning more about Dave, you can listen to the podcast. Speaking of Yuan Racy, the title of the CD is Homage, and obviously you just talked about how Yuan was such a influence on both of you. Would you talk about the choice of Chinatown and then also the choice of having Larry Hall play the solo on Chinatown, one of the most iconic film trumpet solos out there? So, what did that look like?
Well, I'll say that when I started thinking about what tunes should be on this CD, that was an obvious choice. I mean, it's an extremely famous trumpet solo, and then any one of us could have done it. And I just thought Larry Hall's such a great player, and I thought he I don't know how many solos he's actually done, even though he's totally capable. But in a town where everybody's great, often great players end up playing in the section most of their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry Hall played in the section a lot, and he was just a fantastic player. And I thought he needed some shine time. And so, and the cool thing is, you know, I said to him, "Play this like you would play it." And Wayne was there. I mean, I couldn't actually go to that session when Larry played the part, so Wayne knows, but Larry played it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if Yuan was here, he would be like, "Oh, great, yo, you know."
Well, he is when we did that, we did it a couple of different ways. He was kind of doing it sort of Yuan, and I kind of said the same thing to him. And we did a few different versions, and until it sounded like him. But Larry had retired from the trumpet at this point because he has tinnitus issues,
Mm-hmm.
which is really a drag. And I played with Larry probably more than any trumpet player in LA because we played the Pantages Theater for 20 years together. So I sat with him a lot. He was my second trumpet player on hundreds and hundreds of things, and great sound, you know, Larry, beautiful tone as you hear on that. But he had stopped playing because it was so excruciating for him in the pit, and you know, it was really a problem. So he finally just decided to not go through that agony anymore. But he decided to kind of get his chops back together so he could do this. And so he practiced and got back together and came over, and that's how this was not. So these are kind of his last recorded notes
Ah,
of his career. So, and just a little bit about the opening 8 bars of the solo, because I went through this. I recorded a version of Chinatown on my last CD as well that Gordon Goodwin did for me, same key, and I listened to you on play the first 8 bars. The vo da da vo da da we da 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 da, right? Plays that thing real slow, and he doesn't take a breath, and he's kind of playing full out. And I was showing my wife I was trying to not take a breath, and I couldn't make it unless I played soft. And Yuan is cranking, as you could hear, and so Larry and I were comparing that. We're kind of going through the same thing. I go, "Can you not take a breath?" And he goes, "I got to take a breath." But I think we got him to do it. I said, "Let me just crank the mic up a little bit and then play it, so we could get it like that." But to show you how great Yuan was, I mean, control of the air and because he barely takes a breath for the next phrase, and he plays the next 8 bars in one breath. So it's really something else.
just a testament to how great he was, and
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
what a fitting tribute. Not just a wonderful player, but Larry is also a wonderful human being as well. So I mean, on so
I
many
agree.
levels, it's the perfect tribute to you on, and for Larry. Well, we got a lot of questions coming in. I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, so let's get through these.
We
And
won't
before
get
I get to
long. We
these,
won't get so long-winded on these. We'll just
no,
yes
no,
and
it's
no.
great. I love it. Great stories. So for those of you listening or watching, we have Jeff Bunnell and Wayne Bergeron here. Show us where you're watching from around the world in the comments. We can see your comments here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps make us be more visible to the trumpet community, which is the goal with everything, right? Just be more visible, get in front of everybody. Kathleen has a great question. First of all, you can really hear the depth of sound in Grand Canyon, which, yes, I agree. She loves it. What's your number one advice for a returning trumpet player? So like a comeback player, someone's picking up after a while. Who wants to hit that one?
Wayne, you should feel this.
Wayne, go
Well,
for it.
Wayne's been through some chop problems, and he's playing better than he ever has. I mean, if anyone knows this, it's Wayne.
Yeah.
So I went through a cancer scare in 2020, right at the peak of the pandemic. I had throat cancer, so good for a trumpet player, And I've been through some dental issues, and I had a cyst on my lip in 2009. So I've had to stop. I've had to relearn to play. Well, I had to relearn to play twice in the last 3.5 years. After I was kind of recovering from my cancer stuff, I went to the dentist, and they gave me a shot back here to, so they could fix a filling, and they hit the nerve. And so this whole quadrant went numb, completely numb, and stayed numb. And I had to wait for it to start coming back a little bit. I could play, but I couldn't feel. So I go to hit a high C and a B flat would come out, or a D. Anyway, enough woes about me. But anyway, I've kind of overcome that now. It's still numb right here, still slightly numb. So I've had to relearn to play on that. So coming back from time off and stuff like that, depending on what your goal is, I mean, if you don't have any pressure, financial pressure, that makes the trumpet a lot more fun. Coming back, as if you're not making a living doing it. But I would say, come back slowly, methodically. Any bad habits you may have had in the past when you played years before, that's a good time to undo those. Maybe get together with a good teacher. I would say approach the trumpet like a classical trumpet player. In hindsight, I was a very natural player when I was young. I could play high when I was a kid, but I had a lot of bad habits. I think finding that foundation that classical trumpet players or classical musicians get is really important. And I tell all my students that when I warm up every day, I warm up very much like a classical trumpet player, as Jeff will tell you, because he hears my little routine I do every day. It's all about kind of round sound and articulation in front of notes and quick response. So coming back, I would say, try to come back with elegance and ease of sound, like getting these two reeds to vibrate easily instead of with force. And that would mean soft playing, very small aperture, do a lot of soft playing. And you have to play loud as well, understanding that the aperture gets bigger when you play loud, softer when you play soft. And And that's how I would approach it, though, if I was coming back slowly and methodically as well, and not be impatient because it doesn't come back fast. I can tell you that.
Great advice. And I mean, that patience, even if you're not coming back, you're right. Like
Yeah,
moving
yeah, yeah.
slowly and being patient. I mean,
You have to do that with anything in life if you think about it. If
yeah,
you're if you're
yeah.
if you're a runner and you haven't run in 20 years and go, I'm going to start running marathons again. What do you got to do? You got to practice.
Yeah.
You got to
Start with the first
train.
steps.
Exactly. So it's like that with anything in life. I got a
Absolutely.
question from somebody asked me what microphone I was using for the podcast because it sounds good. From
Ah,
Casey Rice, who's the sound guy for the Big Fat Band.
well, there you go. What pod?
It's a I
What
don't know
mic
how
did
to
you
say
use?
Fifine. I don't know how to say it even.
Neither do I. Well, there you
Fining,
go.
Finine or fining maybe, or it's probably got some accent on. It's probably French or something, and I'm just completely butchering it. But anyway, that's what it
Well,
is.
well, good to know. We got folks checking in from all over the place. Oh, my buddy Larry Newman's watching. He said, "Yeah, elegance and ease of sound, slowly and methodically. Great advice."
Yes, sir.
Our buddy Marcel Schott from the Netherlands. Hey, Marcel. He says, gives us a shout
Marcelo,
out.
what's up, brother? I've
Yeah,
been back there to play his trumpet party a couple of times. So
yeah,
with
that's a
Betty,
lot of fun. That's a lot of
it
fun.
sure is.
Aaron from Palermo, Sicily. We got San Diego around the corner. Jody from Valencia, Fresno, St. Louis, Long Beach. So a lot of folks checking in. We got time for another question or two here. Sorry, I've got too many buttons to push. Um, yeah, Jeff, we had a question about Clark Terry. Uh, you talked about the trumpet players you were influenced by. Uh, did you ever have any run-ins with Clark? Did you ever play with him or anything like that?
I did not. I knew people that played in his big band, and I knew people that studied with him. I mean, I certainly have his records, and he's an incredible. I mean, a guy that can that can turn his his trumpet upside down and play fast up tempo solos.
A little
You
too
know,
easy for him, apparently.
yeah, and I never met him, but I think everyone that I know that has met him and knew him said he was just an incredibly genuine, warm human being, and he was clearly an incredible trumpet player. He taught lessons for free. He never charged any of his students,
Wow.
and he just wanted to pass on information and help people. And I mean, Wayne, did you ever meet him?
I never met him. I heard him play live, though. I heard him at a jazz festival years ago when I was in high school, and I didn't. I mean, I knew he was great, but I couldn't quite absorb it at the time, like I can now when I listen to him play. I'm just mesmerized. There's nobody more swinging. I mean,
Yeah.
and facility on the trumpet and all of that. Ease of playing, all the things we talked about, the nimbleness. He's and incredible ideas and all of that, and
Yeah.
funny entertainer.
Yeah.
There's an Oscar Peterson record, Oscar Peterson plus one, Clark Terry.
Yeah,
If you
it's
don't
a great
have that,
record, man.
get that record because he plays some plunger solos that are just incredible. Anyway, that's a great record.
Oscar Peterson plus one.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Los Angeles Trumpet Ensemble, Homage, another great album.
Uh,
Plug as much as we can, right? So we're about running out of time here. It's been so awesome having you guys on here. You guys working on any new projects? I know this Los Angeles Trumpet Ensemble CD just came out, but you guys have anything else in the works, either together or individually, that you want to talk about?
Well,
um,
there is a project Wayne and Tom Kubis are working on that I'm going to be part of.
yeah, we're doing uh, we lost the great Jack Sheldon uh, not that long ago, and Tom and Jack were very good friends, and Jack would go to Tom's house every week, and they would jam. Tom would play piano, and Jack would sing and play trumpet, and they would record everything. And so Tom started doing little tracks for him. He goes, so you go, what tunes you want to do? And they would say, well, you stepped out of a dream or whatever. And then Tom would do some like synth strings, and he'd do a click track. He'd use some fake drums in Logic or something. And they have all dozens of these tunes recorded. Tom decided, like, because he's so freaking brilliant, and he took Jack's vocal and trumpet tracks, since they were all clicked out, or most of them anyway, and if they weren't, he created a click track, and then he wrote big band charts around these things, and with strings and stuff, right? And
Wow.
so he sent me a few of them, and he goes, "Hey, I got this idea." So I mocked some of this stuff up. Matter of fact, I would had more time and I could figure it out. I'd play it right now a little bit so you could hear what it sounds. So I did all the trumpets, and Andy Martin did all the trombones, and either Tom or Sal Lozano did the saxes. And then we used Tom's fake rhythm section just to hear what the stuff was going to sound like with Jack's vocal and Jack's trumpet. And it's really quite, I mean, and so anyway, Tom asked me to produce this thing. So probably after the first of the year, we'll get started on it and go in with the band all together, of course, instead of stacking it in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and putting a real rhythm section on there, and and then adding a string section, doing a string session. And it's going to be a big, well-produced, big deal with Jack's, called these classic Jack Sheldon. I mean, it's really, really good. And so Jeff, played with Jack's band a lot. And so I'm going to try to use putting this together. We'll probably have different players on different things. We're trying to utilize the players that played with Jack, um,
Mm-hmm.
that played in his band, for the most part anyway. And do that. It's really, I was pretty close with Jack for a number of years, until his manager fired me. Uh, but I was a pallbearer at Jack's funeral, and I played taps on his horn at his gravesite.
Wow. Wow.
So this is relic for me, is like a huge, huge deal
I can
to
imagine.
be part of. So anyway, it's going to be a great project. I'm working on another solo CD now. So anyway, I
So
don't know when I'll get that finished. It just, it's
awesome. Well,
low on my list of things to do. I have a lot of other things to do right now.
well, let us know about those. And Jeff, I mean, it must be pretty, really meaningful to you also to be included on that on the Jack Sheldon. I mean, what impact did Jack have on you when you're playing? And did you get to play with
Well,
him at all or in his big bands?
Jack,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Wayne and I started when he put a big band together. Wayne and I were in the band, and yeah, his manager would kind of inadvertently fire people for the wrong reasons, and but there was
If you missed the gig, whoever replaced you would just be in the band.
but at one
Like,
point there was a gig that the trumpets were so bad that Jack turned to her and said, "On the next gig, I better see the A list." And sure enough, it was Wayne and Warren Looning and me and Ron Stout at the next gig. So, but Jack he was an incredible musician, and everything about him. I mean, those gigs were so special because he would sing and play, and he was funny. Everything. He was just the consummate musician, and it's hard not to be affected by him. He was just everything he did was so right. Um, so he's great, and we all loved him. I mean, he was just a good guy.
yeah, he
So
was a very, very funny guy, because I used to this day, when I'm speaking on the microphone, when I'm doing a guest artist thing, I think about how Jack Sheldon would deliver what I what I was going to say, how I'm introducing somebody, even, how you introduce the players in the band. I kind of took note of how he did that, and so I do that to this day, and I tell jokes, and I consider myself somewhat of a comedian, and and uh, and I used to ask Jack about stuff, when stuff bombed and stuff, and he said you always have to have a backup line.
Hmm.
And one of his, for instance, was if he said something and nobody laughed, he goes, "Well, not that funny. This is just more human interest stuff," and then the audience would laugh. So that's his backup line. So I have stuff like that when things aren't going over as well as I would like, and he said in comedy you have to take risks.
Hmm.
And so I crossed the line. I've said things where I've gotten in trouble, like from parents, for instance. And it's really not even that big of a deal,
Yeah.
but
But
some people get really, been out of shape
yeah,
about comedy,
yeah.
which is kind of ridiculous because it's comedy. It's
When
not
you're
to be
up on
taken
stage,
seriously.
yeah,
You know?
you're up on stage. You have to entertain, and yeah,
Even the remark I made about Maynard looking up at me, I said that at a gig, and somebody got really offended. But I go, "What's a?" Maynard used to say that about Miles.
Yeah.
Maynard to play harmony music solo. He'd say, "Hope Miles is looking up at me with approval." So I stole that. But somebody to get upset over that. I mean, what's upsetting about that? It's funny,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
It's all, yeah. You got to have to be
But it is a
lighthearted
little bit of
about
a
it.
risk, you know. If I was
Well,
doing it
there
in
we
the middle
go.
of a Pentecostal church, that'd be a different story, you know.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I can't, we've gone over an hour. Thank you guys so much. We got some great insight into the album, Homage. We got some great insight into some trumpet playing and some stand-up comedy tips as well. So we covered all of our bases. So Jeff, Wayne, thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to have you on again soon.
Yeah, John, thank you so much. Great job as always, man.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for checking in. I didn't get to say hi to everybody, but you know,
Yeah,
Ryan
there'll be
Resky
more.
and all my New York
You can
buddies, you
join
know.
us in the comments
All right.
afterwards. It'll be online. You can comment on there and say hi to everybody.
All right, cool.
No, thank you guys. And thank you guys all for watching. Oh man, how much fun this was talking about the LA Trumpet Ensemble CD homage, and we went all kinds of different directions. So if you don't have it yet, the physical CD is available. I have the link in the comments, both on YouTube and on Facebook, to where you can go to the Bandcamp page to get the physical CD, as well as downloading the digital copy with the cool digital booklet that Jeff put together with some transcriptions and whatnot. And if you're at the shop, we do have physical copies at the shop. So you can come up and get a mouthpiece or an alignment, or just pick up your copy of the CD. So thank you again for watching. We'll have some more live streams coming up pretty soon. I do want to let you know of two things coming up. Our trombone podcast, the Trombone Corner, we have a new episode posting later today with Brett Baker, who's a fabulous trombonist with fabulous trombonist with the Black Dyke band over in the UK. In fact, they just won the world championship. He's also the marketing lead at Dennis Wick. So we went all kinds of different directions with Brett Baker. That's on the Trombone Corner podcast. And we have a new trumpet podcast coming up next week, The Other Side of the Bell. You're not going to want to miss this one. It's a video podcast with Chris Bodie. So after 7 years, I did a follow-up. He was on episode 24. And we did a follow-up to talk about his new album, Volume 1, out on Blue Note Records, and all kinds of different directions in terms of his career and stuff. So don't miss that on The Other Side of the Bell, posting next week, just in time for Thanksgiving. So you can avoid your family and listen to great trumpet and trombone talk. Well, that's it for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll be back on another live stream soon. Bye for now.